Fix my webcam here. Okay. So, I'm going to apply this again. Okay, so I'm going to help you a little bit on your literature for this week because you have a writing assignment. So I know sometimes I can't come in there and help you right when you need it because I have to go hither and yon and what have you, and you want to do it at different times. So that's why we video. Okay. So if you're watching this, that means that you are on week 5, Monday, Ancient Literature Supplement. And it says page 79, the Epic of Gilgamesh and the Book of Job, writing assignment, see your notes. All right, and over on your notes for Monday, it says the writing assignments are found in the Ancient Literature Supplement. Write the first draft of your paper today, then complete writing lesson 6. The writing lessons will guide you to revise your paper. The final paper is due Friday. And then it says, hint, titles of books should be italicized if you're typing them, which you're supposed to, this assignment, or underlined if you're writing by hand. So when you write your rough draft by hand, make sure you underline the titles. If you write the Epic of Gilgamesh, make sure you underline it. And then you'll italicize that when you type it. Now, I will help you both to type because I know you can't type. You probably should take some kind of a typing course because that would be important. Nonetheless, okay. So we have okay, let me stop right quick. I don't know if I've told you yet, but I should have told you not to worry about your grammar this week because we're actually doing grammar this week while you're doing your writing paper. So go ahead and just turn to page 79 in the literature book, and it talks about the writing assignment, the Epic of Gilgamesh and the Book of Job. And now it says you're going to write a 5-paragraph paper of about 350 words or more, if you want to, on any topic found in your readings in the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Book of Job, or both. Okay, you may consider using any of the critical thinking questions. So on all of the critical thinking questions that we did on Epic of Gilgamesh, remember I told you just to choose one, I think, on the critical thinking to do. Well, go back and look at all of those because those actually make really good writing topics to kind of get you going. You don't have to use any of them, but you might want to go back and kind of get the wheels to turning. Now, where it says a 5-paragraph essay, okay, look at the middle part. Your paper has to be typed. This is your final copy. I'm going to try my best to sit down with each of you after you've finally revised and proofread and you're ready to type your final copy. I'm going to sit down with you and I'm going to help you do this, okay? If it's not turned in on Friday, it will not be your fault. It will be mine, okay? I'm going to try, but my weeks and days are always messed up. Okay, so it has to be typed, your final copy. It has to have double space with 1-inch margins, which generally it's already set at that. You don't have to change anything. The paper must have an introductory paragraph, at least 3 topic paragraphs, and a conclusion. The paper must be an argumentative essay, must not be a mere assertion of your opinions supported by a description of the ideas that you favor. In other words, you can't just write about it. Okay? The paper must give reasons for the position that you favor and reasons against those that you oppose. The reasoning has to be logical. In other words, it can't be something way out, it has to be normal. The argument should be clear, interesting, and acceptable to your intended audience. Okay, hold your page there, put a pencil or something there. Turn over to page 5 in this book. This is lesson 1, the argumentative paper. Now, I don't know if you remember, but the very first week of school, on week 1, day 1, they wanted you to write an argumentative paper that week. And I said, no, we're not going to do that. So we're going to do it today. So we're going to kind of look over what an argumentative paper is supposed to be like. All right, let's look up there. The first few lessons will help you construct and organize an effective argumentative paper. The writing that you will experience in this program is called argumentative or point-driven writing, which is by far the most common writing assignment in college courses. This kind of writing requires you to take a position and stand your ground. Generally, when discussing literature, your chief purpose for writing will be interpretation. You must carefully understand the purpose of argumentation. Whenever young writers are asked to write an argumentative paper, oftentimes they approach the task with many misconceptions as to what is expected. First, the argumentative paper is not a biographical sketch about the author. If your topic is about a literary work, which this one is, this one's going to be about either the Book of Job or the Epic of Gilgamesh or both. So this one fits under the literary work. It says, then focus on the ideas of the author. Don't worry about the author himself. We're not talking about the author. Okay, so we're focusing on his thoughts that he put in the paper. All right. Then it says, second, the argumentative paper is not an elaborate definition. If you're writing an argument against abortion, don't spend 2 pages spewing forth words explaining what abortion is. Very few people are ignorant about what an abortion is. Therefore, do not waste precious words on defining terms that don't need to be defined. Your concise language should clarify the meaning of any terms. Finally, the argumentative paper is definitely not a plot summary. For some odd reason, most inexperienced writers have this compelling urge to write a summary about the work. However, if the urge is too great and you must write a plot summary, then write it. Once you finish the summary, file your masterpiece away, forget about it, and then get down to serious writing. In other words, you are not going to sit down and write to me about what the story was about. That's not what we're doing. All right, here's where it says, right in the middle, if you're like I am, you hate to be disagreeable. I think we read this part. Many dislike for getting into petty squabbles. That goes back to I read that wrong. My dislike for getting into petty squabbles goes back to my teenage years when I knew a fellow named Confrontational Charlie. That name has been changed for the sake of argument. Of course, everyone has encountered Charlie. This guy knows anything about everything and relishes the idea of matching wits with the best of his fellows. However, Charlie tends to have very few friends because people avoid him. Alas, Charlie just is not very friendly. Many of us have learned that to have friends, we must show ourselves to be friendly. This means that we should not see every conversation as a chance to beat a person mentally with piercing words. Also, this means trying to tolerate imperfect people with their peculiar quirks and weird ideas. Whether your community is your family, school, church, or country, you experience peace whenever all members dwell together with some sort of understanding. Now, this is leading to something. Fortunately, writing an argumentative paper will not require sacrificing your easygoing disposition on the altar of muckraking. A good argumentative paper has a positive tone that represents your logical, unemotional, and reasoned approach to a subject that is open to debate. Emotional outbursts are not only unnecessary, but are inappropriate for the responsible, intelligent writer as well. Any fool can resort to name-calling, temper tantrums, and shouting. Whenever someone gets angry about a topic, his loss of emotional control generally indicates that his position's weak. If you can't discuss a controversial topic with calmness and presence of mind, then you should reevaluate what you believe about that topic. If you can discuss your position with passionate conviction yet without anger, then other people will value your thoughts even though they may disagree with you. All right, so turn to the next page. As you've already learned about your young life, people disagree on a host of ideas. Some issues are unimportant. Others are extremely important. Some of these issues happen to be the current passing fad. Other issues are steadfast convictions of the soul for which you'd rather give your life before you would change your mind. An implied trait of the responsible writer is a respect for another's viewpoint. This is not to say that you should agree with the viewpoint. However, reasonable people do differ. They have their reasons for believing the way they do. Your task as a responsible writer is to study both sides of an issue, to point out the weaknesses of the contrary position, and to show how your point is superior. So that's what you're doing. You're looking at different ideas, the for and the against of whatever it is. This is for, this is against. Figure out which one's which one do you go with? Why do you go with it? Why is the other point bad? So you got to think about, well, if I say this, then someone else might come back and say this. You got to think about that. Your purpose for argument is not to strip your adversary of his dignity, but to help him to become enlightened and to understand the truth as you understand it. Of course, this is no small task. Approach this task of enlightenment with humility and grace and not with pride and boorishness. All right. It says, do not use secondary sources. For a primary source is the text that you're studying. For example, if you're reading Great Expectations by Charles Dickens in order to write a paper about the topic, then Dickens' work is the primary source. However, if you find a book called Analysis and Criticism of Great Expectations, this work is a secondary source that's written about the primary source. Argumentative papers do not use secondary sources. Do not refer to sources other than any. In other words, when you're writing your paper, you're not going to look at anything else except Job and or the Epic of Gilgamesh, because those are the two that you can write about, either one or both. Look where it says the audience. Now, always consider your audience as you write. Your audience may consist of millions of readers or just one person. And in your case, it's me. Normally, you would write differently for a group of first graders than you would for a teacher who has a college degree. The inexperienced writer tends to forget about his audience as he sets out to write his paper. Of course, this does not mean that you must use a pretentious vocabulary. A logical argument expressed in simple terms will convert more people to your position than any grandiloquent blah, 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 blah. Get the point? At least in the academic context, you can assume that your intended audience will have a basic knowledge about your topic. So basically, you're writing to me. You don't have to impress me, but don't use slang. Don't use slang. Don't use gonna and fixin' and whatever. Don't use those, okay? Now, your topic. Normally, you will be given a broad subject and you will be responsible to narrow that topic. The teacher could assign a 2-page paper about Aristotle's Poetics. The first step is to limit the topic. You could write about the concept of the tragic flaw, or you could write about Aristotle's view about the ideal tragedy. On the other hand, perhaps you could discuss the nature of the epic poem. Do not try to say too much in your paper. Keep the topic focused with a good thesis statement. The importance of narrowing the subject with your thesis statement is discussed in Lesson 2. Okay, that gives you an overview of what an argumentative paper should be. So you are going to argue. This should be perfect for a teenage girl to argue. Now, what to argue? Well, we know that we either have to write about Job or we have to write about something in the Epic of Gilgamesh. So let's look back. You can go back to page 71 in this book, 72, and at the bottom of 1.5, there's some critical thinking questions. Compare and contrast the fall of Enkidu with the fall of Adam in Genesis. Okay, compare and contrast Gilgamesh's view of war with that of the elders. Look over page 74, 2.5. One often hears there is a fine line between love and hate. Explain how Ishtar shows both of her attributes of love and war when confronting Gilgamesh. You can read more about those. You can look at the last ones on 4.5. Is Unaptishim correct when he states that loneliness by itself can teach a soul about the purity of God? Explain how divine revelation is necessary for this teaching of purity. You can look through those. Now, on page 79, there's suggested topics. Explain how Enkidu and Gilgamesh each represent a part of humanity. Okay? Compare and contrast the flood account in the Epic of Gilgamesh with the Genesis account. You can just read these. Explain how Job is a type of Christ. Explain why the righteous suffer according to the book of Job. Discuss the nature of God as revealed in the book of Job. Compare and contrast Job with his 3 friends. You can choose those, or you can look at any of the critical thinking questions, or if you came up with your own thought or your own, well, why this? or I wonder why such and such. If you thought of something, and it doesn't have to be about Gilgamesh, it can be about Job, because you've been reading Job. So just think of something, and it has to be something that is a point that you need to explain to someone. Show them your point. Now, what I want to do now is, now you need to think of your topic, because today you got to do your rough draft. Today, okay? So think of something. If you can't think of anything, just choose something on here, okay? Think about what your point is. For instance, let's look at the third one. Is there a thin line between love and hate? Use Ishtar as a basis for discussion, okay? So you could think, well, yeah, there's not a thin line between love and hate. Now, this is me. I'm just arguing my point, and I'm just doing it off the top of my head. No, because love and hate are total opposites. There's not a fine line in between there, because if you love someone, you love them. There's no room for hate. If you hate someone, there's no room for love. So they're on the opposite ends of the spectrum. And then Ishtar, we could say, hey, well, you could say that she loved to hate him. Anyway, I would sit there and I would choose that, and then I would think about my thoughts on it. And then you're going to have at least 3 points. So 3 points of explaining why you think what you do. Okay? So obviously choose the easiest one for you. Choose one, look through the critical thinking questions, whatever. If you had your own question about it, about something through Job or Gilgamesh, and just think about it. Okay? Come up with 3 points. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop this, and I'm going to switch, and I'm going to go to my screen, which I should have done in the first place, because I'm going to kind of show you how to put it together right quick, okay? All right, so I kind of wanted to just remind you how to kind of put it together. Now, it does say that there has to be 5 paragraphs. Don't worry about the word count. Don't worry about that. If you have 5 paragraphs, most likely you're going to have about 350 words, and that's really a very short essay. Okay, so your first, now you do not have to write a, where you list it, Roman numerals, outline. You don't have to do that. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to do your intro. Okay, so that's where you're going to kind of put your question up here, or your thought, whatever it is you're talking about. Do it in an interesting way. Okay, so you're going to have da-da-da-da-da, you're going to have about maybe 3 sentences. Your last sentence of your intro paragraph, which is paragraph number 1, your last sentence is going to somehow list the 3 things that you're going to talk about. That's your thesis. Remember, we've done this before. We've done the 5 paragraph thing, where your first paragraph, you're going to have 2 or 3 sentences up here kind of introducing whatever, making a point. No details. Intro is just general. This is kind of what we're going to talk about. Last sentence, these are the 3 things. Okay? So your thesis statement's going to list 3 things that you're going to talk about. Okay. Your second paragraph is going to be the first of these. You're going to talk about whatever this first thing is. Okay. And then you're going to have a little paragraph there. Remember, it has to have 3 to 5 sentences in a paragraph. Then you're going to have a third paragraph, which is going to talk about the second thing in your thesis. Then your fourth paragraph is going to be the third thing in your thesis. And then your last paragraph, your conclusion, is this paragraph reworded. That's all it is. This paragraph, your intro, reworded down here. Okay? Now, I'm not even going to take any more time. I've already taken enough time. I'm not going to take any time on coming up with a thesis or what you can write about. You can make up your own thing, as long as it's something about Job or Gilgamesh or whatever. Okay? Think of something that happened in it. I mean, think of maybe your favorite part or your least favorite part, or a part in there where you went, wow, or whatever, and just come up with something. Okay? But it's something that you're going to have to argue your point. This is why I think this. And you're going to have 3 reasons why right here. Okay? And you're going to have to do it today. your rough draft's due today. Now, then it says to do writing lesson 6 on page 20 of this book. So turn to page 20 right quick. I know y'all are both huffing and puffing, and I know you're mad. All right, look at page 20. See lesson 6? It says nouns as subjects. Okay, so you're just going to read through all this. Okay, look at exercises at the bottom. Okay, there's 1 through 14. You have to circle the subject of the sentence, rewrite by placing pronoun, blah, 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 blah. Rewrite? Wait a minute. By replacing the pronoun with the word in the brackets found at the end of this, even though they're gazes. Oh, okay, yeah. There's 14 of these. Do 7. I don't care if you do just 1 through 7 or 7 through 14 or every other one. But what you're going to do is, for instance, let me take number 1, because it says circle the subject of the following, because this lesson 6 is, we're just kind of going over subjects kind of, but read through it, okay? And it says on another sheet of paper, or on a sheet of paper, rewrite the sentences by replacing the pronoun with the word or words in brackets at the end of the sentence. Look at the first sentence. Now I'm going to do the first one. That means y'all can't do number 1. Even though their gazes were often fatal, they could not hurt Gilgamesh. Okay, and then in brackets, there's the scorpions. Okay, now what word, what pronoun in that sentence is talking about the scorpions? Their. Even though their gazes. Okay, so I guess what you could write, rather than just rewriting the sentence, you could just write the pronoun and then dash, and why don't you just write the pronoun? You can just write the pronoun that the word. So in other words, if you were doing number 1, which don't, but if you did, put number 1 and then just read the sentence and look at the word or phrase or whatever they have at the end of the sentence, and then go back in the sentence and then write the pronoun that's taken the place of. In this sentence, it's their. So on number 1, you just write there. And that's all you got to do. So just do 7 of those, okay? And turn those in. And then it says improving your writing. You'll want to do this after your rough draft, okay? And then improving your writing, look, just kind of read what it says and just read what it says. That's all you got to do, okay? So rough draft, and then 7 of those for your grammar, okay? All right, that is it for today.